Lotuses, and welcome to another show of the Lotus Letters podcast. We are in season 2, and this is episode 3. I am super excited because tonight I have a special guest. But until then, as you know, I am your host, Maddie. I thank all of you for the letters that you've sent in so far, the feedback, the responses on YouTube, the inboxes on Facebook, seeing me out in public as usual. Thank you so much for your engagement, for your likes, for your shares. I do not take those for granted. Thank you for your support and your prayers. Again, I am your host, Maddie Stevenson. Today, I have a guest, affectionately known as the Date Doctor.
That's what they call me.
But for those of us that, just chill out, I like to call him Clark. I think some people call him John. His wife makes sure she doesn't call him too late for dinner.
Hey.
But John, the Date Doctor Clark, is here today to talk to us today about communication. Communication is super important.
Oh, it's definitely important.
I believe that honest, open communication is important. It's important in relationships, no matter if it's professional, church, romantic, business endeavors. Communication, open, honest communication is essential and effective. Clark, Date Doctor, is going to talk to us today about communication. But as usual, we're going to start with a letter.
Okay. Well, for starters, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anybody that's listening in on the Lotus Letters. And I'm John Clark. And of course, like the wonderful, the famous Miss Maddie has eloquently put it, they do call me John the Date Doctor Clark. And reason being is that I'm a marriage and family counselor in the North Carolina area. Y'all, I love what it is that I do. I have the opportunity to speak with a lot of individuals, a lot of couples, just talking about different situationships, relationships, marriages, and most importantly, self-soothing things. And to kind of piggyback on what you mentioned, I just enjoy the tone and the energy of communication in general. But before I kind of go into the communication and my definition and my spirit of it, I do have a letter with a twist in reference to communication. My letter is an apology, and my letter is in reference to self, but most importantly, the viewership. I want to apologize for an opportunity that we forgot to communicate effectively. I want to apologize because of the lies that maybe sometimes we may have told. I want to apologize because we didn't communicate enough. I want to apologize because we only gave 40% of the communication when we should have gave 95 or more. I want to apologize because we decided to be dishonest when we could have been truthful. I want to apologize because we decided to speak on behalf of communicating for that person versus allowing them to communicate. I want to apologize because we decided to look at communication as an opportunity to be negative versus an opportunity for us to be very transparent. I want to apologize because we decided to make a bad decision when we could have been more truthful. I want to most importantly apologize because we decided to be dishonest about our finances. I want to apologize because we decided to make piss poor choices about an opportunity that could have been saved and resolved within 10 seconds versus allowing years or months to go by without communicating effectively. Ultimately, I just want to apologize on behalf of our misconstrued definition of communication when it's a heck of a lot more simpler than the way the world makes it out to be. So on behalf of myself and on behalf of society and people, y'all, let's apologize. Let's accept communication for the accountability that it is. It's not as difficult as we make it out to be. Let's apologize because that's what communication is. Communication is indeed an opportunity. It's a necessity for us to grow. But when we don't take advantage of that opportunity, when we don't take advantage of the term necessity, we leave it up to interpretation. We leave it up to being neglected. So communication is key. It's important. It's beautiful. But also depends on how you want to view it and look at it. So that's my definition of communication. And this is my Lotus letter that I wanted to transition it to an accountability / apologetic letter to the viewership and also to my spirit in general.
Well, I don't want to use the word deep because we throw that word around but it resonated on so many different levels. It was clear.
Mm-hmm.
It addressed so many things that we kind of like sweep under the rug and don't discuss.
Mm-hmm.
They bother us, but we don't always articulate that to our partner or whoever we're speaking to. So I think that is amazing. It touched on some places that would require us to be vulnerable on a different level. Where did that apology come from for you?
So, and I'm glad you put it that way. The apology came from the things that I see a lot of my couples and also myself, most importantly, are working on. And the apology came from being a heck of a lot more transparent about what it is my intentions are coming from, about the goals that I've established, about what I want to work on, but most importantly about what I want my couples and what I want my individuals to work on. Because a lot of times we hold back so much information.
Right.
To be confused with manipulation, to be confused with I'm afraid of what she may say or I'm afraid of what he may say, to be confused with I'm going to make a decision because I fear what he or she may decide. Because what I mean by that is sometimes I may not want to give you 100% because I'm afraid of you may leave. I may be afraid of what your answer may be because in my mind I have your answer already, but I'm really not giving you the opportunity to answer. And a lot of times, a lot of relationships start off from a toxic standpoint because we like to speak on behalf of what we think or what we assume that person is going to say or decide, and we don't give them that opportunity. Like, and not to go on a rant, but a lot of times we do it. We're all guilty of it sometimes. Nobody's perfect. So to go back to the original question, that apology that I wrote came from a place of example. It came a place of my truth. It came from a place of some of my couples' truth and individuals, because not a lot of us are speaking on their behalf in a place of being transparent. And I didn't want my letter to feel like a presentation. I wanted to come from a pure place.
Absolutely. I think it's a lot of times we don't share, and this is my personal opinion, honestly. I know that there is some fact in it. We meet representatives sometimes.
And we do.
And it comes from a place of fear.
Yeah.
Whether we're withholding who we are because we don't want to be vulnerable, or we feel like we have to show up as this person that we are not in order to be accepted.
That's it.
And then we build relationships, if I can even use that word, because in order to really be relational, there has to be truth.
Yeah.
What we sometimes forget is communication is not just all about yapping or talking. It's also about active listening, processing, working through, and talking through different topics, no matter how long it takes to get to a resolution, even if that resolution is, okay, we don't necessarily agree on this, but we respect each other's position. And because we know what your truthful, authentic position is, now we can move. We know how to maneuver. And then it's up to us to make a realistic decision if we are able to really accept and build off of that. But I think a lot of times we decide to paint red flags yellow and green, or we decide to say we're all in situations and on topics that we really aren't all in on.
I'm trying to tell you.
And because we love or feel like we have a potential of even strongly liking that person, we try to move with it. And then we'd be so, what would they say, so deep into it.
Yeah,
We feel like we're at a point of no return. And then we look 10, 15 years down the line and we side-eyeing the person in the relationship when you said, realistically, you agreed to that. And you really did not.
Yeah, be upfront, be transparent. Like, yeah, everything is, I mean, let's keep it real. Everything is usually all cute, fine. We can avoid this, we can ignore this in the beginning. But should we? But a lot of times, subconsciously, we make that choice to do so. I mean, we're human. It's all given. Certain things may not bother us in the beginning of a relationship, whereas 6 to 12 months down the road, it may begin to bother us. But what if we don't know at the time that that's really something that initially bothers us? Is it really a problem to address it 6 to 12 months down the road? I mean, it's up for debate, but it's all about your delivery when it comes to communication. Because at the end of the day, I can say that I don't like you. I can say that you have we're going to take it there if I can. I can say that you are the worst person in bed, but I don't have to be hurtful or hateful to say about it.
Right.
Like, just because it sounds terrible or may bother your spirit or may pierce your skin or your soul to hear somebody say that you're terrible in bed does not mean that I need to come out and be as blunt to say that you're terrible in bed. I can say it in the most respectful way without it feeling like it being manipulative, without it feel like I'm being dishonest, without me touching your spirit or without me dropping your credit score to make you feel that low. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. Apologize for the viewers that love cats. I promise I don't hurt cats. As a disclaimer, I promise I'm not hurting cats at the house. But what I'm saying is, y'all, there are multiple ways to get things off your chest. There's multiple ways to be vulnerable. There's multiple ways to have a deep, in-depth conversation that society may make it seem like it's hurtful to have and still be able to get your point across and still refuse for it to be manipulative. So you mentioned vulnerable. And to be honest, society feels like vulnerable is a way of being weak, or vulnerable is a way that, oh gosh, if I open up to this individual, something has to be wrong. Not at all. Vulnerable can just be being able to be transparent, but it's got to be comfort. Like, I don't mind opening up about my deepest, darkest fears. I don't mind opening up about some things that I may have struggled with. But before you be vulnerable, make sure that person can receive it. Make sure this is somebody that you don't mind being comfortable with. Make sure this is not somebody that's a snake in the grass. Make sure you don't mind being open and honest in general, because people lie sometimes. People can be dishonest. People can be mischievous. So sometimes it's hard to decipher through the BS. And I don't mean Bachelor of Science.
I understand.
But sometimes we have to take that leap of faith to say, you know what? I don't mind being vulnerable with this person. I'm going to accept the fact that they may be a snake in the grass, but I may not be able to decipher through that. But I'm going to be okay with being open and honest and transparent at times. But we have to look at vulnerable as in, I want to grow with this person. I want to establish this feeling, and definitely, I rock with you.
Absolutely. There was a lot of things that you said I want to address. The first part was the up for debate 6 to 12 months in. And I agree with you. We can debate if we should bring it up or not. I feel like for me, and this is a personal opinion, Lotus is, and I always drop them and I always say, hey, this is my opinion, because I don't want you to think that I'm coming from a place of fact, because what works for me realistically may not work for another. For me, I don't like to leave any room for a seed to be planted and it has an opportunity to grow. And what I mean by that, 6 to 12 months in, what I said was cool with me 6 or 12 months ago, and I find out now it's kind of a slight challenge for me, I do want to bring it back up, because I don't want it to fester and I don't want it to grow into something else. Because let's be real, opportunity and challenges is however you perceive it. If something is now bothering me 6 or 12 months later, I don't want that to be a challenge, to be an open door or an opportunity to do something that deviates from the relationship. I don't want to use it as an excuse. And then in regards to vulnerability, I feel like for men and women in some relationships, we weaponize vulnerability against our partners at times.
We do.
Where it speaks to the other part that I want to say about communication. Even if you are bad in bed, one of the parts of communication we said was open, honest communication, but timing is important as well. I'm not going to, if we already in a heated argument, that ain't the time for me to be like, well, I don't like it that way anyway.
I've been meaning to tell you about this anyway. I just ain't want to hurt your feelings.
So communication and timing and honesty, all of that plays a part, because then if we're already in a heated argument and I say something negative, I mean, you're going to think that's what I'm maybe using to either add insult to injury or placing that nail in the coffin.
That's what's going to
And you're not going to, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to receive it. Because you're going to now be even more defensive. Oh, you've been sitting thinking about that all this time? Why are you now just bringing this up? You could have been told me that. You got me doing this. I'm 10 toes down thinking that everything is great, but it ain't.
Yeah, because, I mean, to piggyback on that, now the issue is outside on 85 so well. Now I got to address your attitude. Now I got to address your tone. Now I got to address your shade that you just threw at me. And now it's like, now we have now deviated from the issue. So now we're no longer trying to fix the problem. Now I got to put my gloves on. Now I got to swing. Now I got to figure out if I need to duck. And that's our problem sometimes. But I'm not going to say that's our problem as in, like, I've never made a mistake in my life. But communication, y'all, is really that important. Like, yes, sex is a very personal, very intimate, very sensitive topic to discuss, but only when we make it that way.
That's right.
Now, of course, as a disclaimer, I'm not advertising myself as being perfect, but I want you all to listen to what we're saying. Yes, sex is sensitive. Yes, it's a very personalized topic, but sometimes we put so much energy on things that we put so much pressure on it that we almost subconsciously make it seem like it's impossible to discuss. Yes, sex is kind of one of those things that's going to get everybody's undivided attention, but when you put so much anxiety on something, when you put so much pressure on something, you now put a heck of a lot more work on it. So if I'm disappointed in bed, if I want things to change in bed, I'm not going to come to my wife saying, hey, you just ain't doing it. So look at my... that's it. So like what everybody just did, they just looked at my energy on what I said. They didn't hear a thing about the word choice of, dang, you're just not doing it. They're looking at my energy.
Right.
They're looking at how it feels. So where do they go? They now on 85 trying to figure out, can I curse a little bit?
Lotus letters.
They on 85 right now talking about, how the hell he say it like that for? They're no longer focused on, well, dang, maybe I should switch it up. Dang, I need to do this. Dang, this is really what he's saying. Because that ain't what they heard. What I wanted them to hear was, hey, babe, let's switch it up. But if I wanted them to hear that, then how come I ain't just say that?
Right.
What I said was, look, you terrible, and then you're seeing my energy. So how about we switch the game up, and maybe it may sound like, hey, babe, you know, I was thinking, you know, we ought to switch the game up a little bit. You know, we ought to try something different. I was thinking about going to Priscilla's and buy a little something to spice the game up a little bit. Let's switch it up. But, you know, just changing up the feel. So what the viewers may have heard then was, okay, maybe I'm going to try something different. They didn't necessarily hear that I'm talking cash about the sex game and how it's whack, and I ain't, you know, getting up and doing that. So it's just a matter of switching the game up, no matter the topic. Like, it can be from sex, it can be from finances, it can be from weight. Like, imagine trying to tell a person, dang, you don't put on about 200 pounds. So now we outside to get on 40 fighting again. But
I got it.
It's just word choice.
So Lotus, you know, I always like to make sure that we are dropping nuggets. So far we've heard with communication, it's definitely a two-way street. It's open, it's honest, it's involving active listening, timing, and delivery. I want to ask you something, because I know you've encountered a lot of couples. And the couples that you've encountered, would you say that it is best to lay all your cards on the table when you initially start dating, or should you only show a few of your cards at a time?
I'm gonna answer that question. I don't know if I can answer that question with a sentence. I apologize in advance, but I may have to answer that with a paragraph.
Please do. We want the truth. We want authenticity.
So yeah,
Did I say that right, producer?
Hey, three more syllables, so you know that stuff is lame. You know, y'all, we're human, so a lot of times our openness really depends on how we feel about that person. So like, if I want to be as vulnerable and to let everything know about my cards and who I am as an individual, it's really going to dictate how well I feel about this person. But if I just want to be generic or just give a sentence or two, that's really going to show a lot about how I initially feel about that person.
That's good.
If I'm gonna be transparent. Like, if I see somebody that's wifey-like, I'm probably gonna give a paragraph, versus if I see somebody that's a booty call, I'm only gonna give you a sentence or two. Man, I didn't give you a sentence. So I like to be transparent in how I explain that. So it really just depends on the energy of how I feel about that person. Now, should I be transparent and give them the entire paragraph and give them everything? It depends on how interested I am with this person. Because let's just be blunt about it. Like, you don't want to just tell all your most deepest, darkest secrets to just any random person.
Absolutely.
It really just depends on your intent. It really depends on how interested you are with this person. Like, if it's somebody that I truly want to pursue, I'm probably going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to let them know everything, not to be confused with withholding, not to be confused with manipulation, but I'm going to let them know that it's a process of getting to know me, and that it should be worth trying to understand me, and it should be worth just as much as me trying to understand you. And it's kind of like the purpose of dating. If we're going to date, well, I'm going to tell you everything for. Sometimes you have to leave things in suspense. not to be confused with manipulation, but suspense as in a process. Suspense as in let's get to know each other in moderation, because I don't know you from a can of paint, so I'm not going to give you 100%, not to be confused with being dishonest or withholding, but to be confused with let's take our time. If I scrape my knee on the ground, is my knee going to be healed in a day? No. It's going to peel up, it's going to scab, it's going to get worse, it's going to hurt, and then in moderation, it's going to get a heck of a lot better. So it really just depends on how I feel about you.
Wonderful. Awesome answer, by the way. Lotuses, I asked that question because we are in 2025 and we are now talking more so about gaslighting, narcissism, manipulation. It's always been there, but now we're openly discussing it. And I chose to say lotuses and not just women because there are female narcissists as well. And I get it. Sometimes in the dating world, you get tired of starting over. You get tired of doing things over. And the older you get, the more people are like saying, okay, this is blah, 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 blah. This is what you get when you get with me, right? I'm not for the games. I don't have time for it this late in life. So I wanted the lotuses to hear, because you're the expert, you know, how often are people really now, especially in our age group, telling the truth? Are they speaking facts? Are more and more people saying, I don't have any more time to waste. I don't have the energy to waste anymore. In my communication, how much am I going to share? And then I guess that also comes from the place, how much time have you taken for yourself to heal? Because at certain ages, after healing and processing and dealing with different people, I feel like certain things we should be able to see, but then there are people that do disguise, and their representative shows up really well.
I'm trying to tell you.
I always want to leave nuggets from our lotuses, because this show is really geared towards healing and people being able to walk in their authentic self. And if you are a person who really has a big heart and you see the positive because you choose to be optimistic, I want them to be able to identify the wolf in sheep's clothing.
That's right.
I don't want it to get where they're now 90 days in and they're thinking things are great. And then voila, this switch flips and the person you thought you was dating is now not that person. I don't want people to have to be able to revert back and have to redo and heal, because we're in a season, I feel, of restoration, recovery, and acceleration.
That's right.
More and more people are taking the time to unpack baggages from lessons. Sometimes our lessons become so weighty and we carry the bags with us instead of taking time. Okay, let me go ahead and take these bags, unpack them. Because, you know, sometimes when you go on vacation, especially if you're going on one vacation after another, you may not unpack your luggage. If you have more than one bag, you may choose to drop that bag off, pack another bag. Now, if you constantly doing that, you'll look over in the corner, you got 4 or 5 unpacked bags. And that's how we do in relationships sometimes. I want our lotuses to be able to unpack these bags, wash that dirty laundry.
I'm trying to tell you.
If you need to throw away old garments, throw them away.
Throw some out.
Don't fret. Hey, we go to Shein, we go Fashion Nova. We can get some more
and we can
garments.
And
you know, Macy's. That might Shein. You may be beyond Shein and Fashion Nova. That's where I'm at because I love it. I feel like the clothes are amazing. That's a plug for Shein and Fashion Nova, by the way. Temu, all of that. But you may be Nordstrom's, you may be Macy's, you may be Gucci, and all of that other stuff. But my point is, sometimes we hold on to things that we don't have to hold on to. And I want people to be in a season where they say, enough is enough. I am the prize.
That's it.
And anybody that I get with or choose to get with me, it's an upgrade. We're going to do this thing as a team. We're going to do this thing together. We're going to do it honestly. No more wasting time.
That's right. We got to get there, though.